Guys, UFC 289 is this weekend, and my partners, DraftKings Sportsbook, are offering new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly. All you have to do is sign up using the promo code Sonnen and bet just $5. That's right, new customers can bet just $5 on any of this weekend's fights and receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. Use the $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings Same Fight Parlay. This is going to give you a shot for an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same fight, including number of rounds and method of victory. The more bets you combine, the more money you can win. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy with the chance to win huge cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers, use promo code Sonnen. Bet just $5 on any wager and get 200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code Sonnen only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira, guys. Official prediction. I officially predict that we have not heard the last of this fight. I officially predict that. I officially predict the X's and O's are not overly close. I officially predict Charles Oliveira does not win a round. I'm not looking to be a jerk. I think Oliveira is just a wonderful fighter. This is another category. There are many fighters, I'll use Dan Hooker just as an example, that believe Beneil Dariush is going to beat Islam. Dan Hooker's been in there with both of them, right? I mean, if there's anyone that has a right to an opinion. Hooker used to be ranked 5th in that weight class. I'm offering for you, if that's true, if Benny's as good as people say he is, right? And we never know. That's why we have to go through the fight. But if he is, Islam versus Charles was not competitive. Not remotely competitive. It was uncompetitive to the point that I don't believe this is a number one contenders match. I know that you do, and I know that members of the media have told you it is, but I don't believe the members of the media were told that it is. I think it's just something they started saying. There are things that I missed. That might be one of them, but that would have had to have been said in a vacuum underneath a rock in the dark of night once. I mean, for me to have missed it, it would have had to have been whispered in the lightest of tone once, many, many months ago, because I can think of the other quotes. I can think of the other press conferences, and I can think of the other commitments that all said if Benny wins, Benny will fight for the belt. I have never heard it said this is the number one contenders match. And it's a point that I'm only bringing to you, right? If Charles beat Benny, he'd be a great candidate to go in and fight for the title. I'm not disagreeing. I just believe that would then go into the category of conversation, right? When you get those matchmakers, you got a conversation. 2, 3 guys, something like that. If you got one guy, like say we do with Aldana versus Amanda, you have a division nobody cares about. It's a very bad thing when you're going into a title fight. You got one person over here. This is the person. That's not good. It's a good thing. And 155 is a very healthy division when you have multiple people. And I do believe that if Charles wins, he goes into the category of names to be considered and discussed for Islam. I don't think it's a lock. And you want to know why it's not a lock? Because the first fight was so uncompetitive. There was nothing about it that calls for a rematch. Nothing. It wasn't a surprise ending when Charles tapped out. Charles has tapped out 8 other times just in the UFC. Like, it just wasn't a surprise. A lot of times the guy gets finished right, the Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, you go, okay, he caught him, redo it. It's one of those things. That's not what this was. There was nothing unusual about seeing a guy who's tapped 8 times tap again. There was no wrestling going his way. There was no conditioning. There was no pace. It didn't look like he wanted it more. It didn't like there was will, grit, understanding. I mean, and I'm reaching, right? I'm reaching. When I get out of the left hand and the right hand in the southpaw versus orthodox, I'm now reaching. With the reach, there was still nothing that calls for a rematch. And you would do one if you were just simply out of bodies. We've seen rematches where they're just simply out of bodies. And I don't think that's what we have here. And you know why I bring that up? I don't bring that up at all to be a jerk. Like what I just said, while not flattering towards Charles, does not affect their match at all. At all. My opinion, or this piece, or our comment section is not going to change at all the competition between those two. I just want to offer you where I'm coming to this conclusion from. I'm coming to the conclusion, and don't forget my initial premise here is just quite simply, we're not done hearing about this. I believe when this fight is over, there's a strong chance that the discussion really just begins. Because of the misconception by the MMA media, who has told you guys what I believe falsely, that this is a number one contenders match. I just don't think that was said. I just don't. I think what Gaethje said has a lot of legs to it. Oliveira wins, so it's going to void that match completely of number one contendership, and then they're going to look to the Poirier-Gaethje match. And for the way that Gaethje told the story, specifically if he wins, look, I don't want to jump in too many different categories for you here. I just think that you're in a unique situation because you have a champion who is unemployed, who is sitting on the top of the bill in a coveted destination known as Fight Island. That's relevant. A lot of times you have a fight and then we think. We talk, we sit, we fly back home, we get together somewhere midweek. We have a few more meetings about meetings, and we talk a few more times about talking, and then we discuss a couple times about discussing, and right, I don't think that's the spot that you're in. I think we got to move pretty quick here. You have Islam, who is your world champion. He's unemployed. Doesn't have a job. He needs a job. So I think that they're going to move it along a little bit quicker, and I'll share with you, Benny appears to be in a very good frame of mind. He appears to be very matter-of-fact. Benny made a statement. It was a real simple one. But he said, anything that Islam can do, I can do better. Now, I like that. I like when a guy overlooks what he's got at hand. Other people will tell you that's terrible. It's the worst thing you can do is overlook an opponent. I don't agree. Now, I'm personalizing. But if I ever focused on a guy, it was a problem. If I could look right past him and think about what was next. I personally had trouble in my career in the championship match. And it didn't overly matter what the championship was for, how small the event or how big the event is. That match was always a problem for me, not the guy, not the opponent. It was that round. You want to know why? It was just from a psychological standpoint that there was nothing to look past. I would approach each contest looking past this guy. Semi-final round was my greatest round. You don't want to run into me in the semis. I was making it to the championship match, for sure. Because I was looking past it. I've just offered for it. I like that Benny's doing that. I like that Benny is looking at Islam. If Benny is at all correct and he has the skills to take off Islam, he's not going to have an overly hard time with Charles. And Charles went as far as to say, and not one single step further, that he's never rewatched his match with Islam because that simply wasn't him. He wasn't in there. I would buy that if it were true. I would buy that if Charles believed that were true. But the fact that we're told Charles was offered a rematch with Islam and turned it down lets us know that at least in that moment, that wasn't the case. Now, we're all great with history at rewriting it after the fact. So there's nothing wrong with what Oliveira is saying. You've got to make a case for it. You got to make your stand somewhere. You got to be careful what you let into your bubble. I don't have any problem with any of it. I'm just sharing with you as an outsider looking in. I don't believe it, and I also don't believe that he believes it. And it puts you in a very interesting spot. Based on everything we know, we really only know one thing. Charles has made it very clear he does not want to fight Islam. Charles didn't want to fight Islam the first time because of the location, just to remind you. They thought the location was a problem, that it was Fight Island. That fight is returning to Fight Island. I mean, there's every little sprinkle and every little dash in this fight. There are things Charles doesn't want. So how do you get the motivation? How do you get the motivation to beat Benny, who's a favorite over you? It's going to take a lot to beat him. When your reward is a match with a guy you don't want to fight.